Welcome to In Case You Forget, a podcast for foster care caseworkers who carry more than anyone sees. If this work feels heavy and follows you home, this is a space to process, reflect, and remember why you said yes. I'm Jamie Caden.
And I'm Jamie Finn. We're so glad you're here. Today, we're excited to introduce you to Mia Arrington. Mia is a wife, mom, therapist, and social worker. As a former foster youth and adoptee, she is the founder of A Fostered Love, which seeks to create a safe, grounded, faith-rooted space for adoptees, former foster youth, and parents to heal, grow, and understand their stories through trauma-informed therapeutic support.
Yeah, and in this episode, we're going to explore how our personal history can influence your reactions and decisions in your work, how to recognize when a case or situation might be triggering old wounds, and what to do about it, and also how to stay grounded as a whole person while serving on the front lines of crisis. Mia, welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here and so excited for what this podcast is going to do for caseworkers.
Well, thank you so much. And I do want to note that you've been on another show with the Forgotten Initiative, the Forgotten Podcast, episode 160. You are on, we titled that, Why Adoption Doesn't End the Healing Journey. And so we'll share a link of that in the show notes for those who want to listen and hear even more of your story. But as we begin, I just want to give our listeners some context on you and your story. I know you founded A Fostered Love in part to help others understand their stories and find healing. So tell us your journey towards that. How did your personal journey lead you to A Fostered Love?
Such a great question. I actually jokingly say in real life that this is completely out of obedience. It's really true. If you know me in real life, I am more of your introverted person. I'm more observant too. I do not care about being in front of people. I never have. Yet, God has just been like, I'm going to use you to be in front of people, right? And so within that, this dream started back in college. And at the time, I was undecided in my major. And I had a friend who was a social work major himself. And he was like, you should really consider this major. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. And the first thought that I had was, I'm not dealing with foster care. And what was interesting about that was just, that conviction that God so lovingly brings. He's like, hey, remember how you surrendered yourself to me, right?
And now you're saying no.
And now I'm saying never. And he's like, hey, I'm going to need you to trust me in this. And so I even credit and say that I genuinely loved the social work program that I actually ended up studying under. It was through Nyack College, and having a Christian perspective with social work, right, and social justice, it really helped shape and form who I am today. And so with that, I also went through the process of going to therapy myself. And there were things that I needed to work through from my own story of being a former foster youth, of being adopted, of things of people pleasing, of fear, of just some deep rooted things that were impacting my everyday and how I showed up. And so for me, I realized if I needed this, I imagine, what about the other workers, other people who are also impacted by their own stories and who are like, no, I'm done with my past. I want to move forward, right? And so in that naming and that healing and that working through it, I offer the permission that sometimes you have to go back to heal so that it's not impacting your current everyday.
So can I ask you, Mia, what has it looked like for you to have to sort of go back a little bit and work through personal history as it comes up in the work you do? Like, I know that you love to share your heart and your story. So can you kind of share some of what that has looked like as you've had to go back?
People may not know this, but it was at a time I'd already graduated college. And I read a book called Is That You, God by Lorraine Cunningham. The book itself, as I was reading, it offered this unique just kind of perspective in prayer and saying, okay, as you're seeking God, is it in alignment with what his word says? who he is, right? And specifically praying that January of that year, I was an RA, an area coordinator for RAs in college. So I mentored women. I oversaw a building of 200 women. And it was something that I loved because it was pouring into college age students who I just have a heart for. I felt God say, your next season is going to be adoption. I had been praying quietly, and a friend didn't even know this. She was actually interning at Bethany Christian Services at the time. And she walked into my office. She's like, Mia, you keep coming to mind. She's like, I just, I feel like the Lord wants me to tell you this. You wrestle with it. She's like, but there's a position available at the agency I'm interning at, and they're looking for a Spanish speaker and they're looking for an admin person. You have social work, like you understand nonprofit, you can do it. I had never heard of Bethany before. And I was like, let me just research and look it up. And it's about adoption. And so I applied. I didn't get the job. And I was like, oh God, did I hear you wrong? And I was wrestling with that. I get a call back literally the week that I have to move out. They're like, hey, so we said we didn't have this position for you, but it's opening up. And would you like it? That opened the door for me to be exposed to adoption in a way that was different from my own story. And what I learned in that position and then being back home, I had to now navigate my relationship with my parents, my own story in adoption and how I felt about it and how I was viewed growing up as in my family. I had to sit and now work with women who were placing their children for adoption, adoptive parents who were so hoping to grow their family and so excited about adoption. My very first experience there was I saw a family come in and just break down in tears because they had been placed. They'd been chosen by a birth mom for their family. And it was the first time I had ever seen joy attached with adoption. And that impacted me in a way that was just like, wait a minute, I have never heard of parents celebrating. Now, this is taboo in the adoption and foster care kind of community in the sense that for those of us who are adopted, there's a lot of tricky feelings when it comes to adoption because we recognize the loss, the trauma, the impact of not being with your first family and how that carries with you, right? And that is very real, right? But when I saw adoption as a celebration, I was like, ooh, this is challenging my worldview here and my perception of what adoption has always been. And I thought that it just meant we just kind of like swept things under the rug and kept it moving like you're just part of this family. There wasn't this honoring and this choice, this active choice to say, you are an image bearer of God. And regardless of how your story starts, you are worthy of family, you are worthy of connection, you are worthy of love, like attachment, all of these things. And I was like, this is a part of adoption that I needed to see in order to impact what I get to do today. And so I think there's room. Everyone's going to have a different opinion about adoption, about foster care, but I think there's room in variety and diverse opinions because it helps to capture not everyone thinks the way that we do.
So Mia, it seems like God took a hard piece of your story and he brought you back so that you could experience your personal redemption through some personal healing, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about today. Do you find that to be the case with a lot of, one, we're talking specifically to caseworkers, to social workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that there are a lot of social workers who go into this work who have had prior experiences with foster care, the system, or things like that?
Most people that I know, they have been impacted in some way or have a genuine love. There's a joke that we say we're not in it for the money. It's the social work, right? And it's just like there is either a genuine love for community, a genuine care for wanting to make a difference too, and really just care about the people you're entrusted with. And so now, is everyone adopted or have personal experience or even like KLG? I'm not sure, but I do know, and I have a lot of friends who are social workers as well, caseworkers, and there's just this desire to do better, right? To leave the world a better place is usually kind of the consensus.
And so it's like I guess I want to bring an encouragement to our listeners of you're in a place that maybe is bringing up some hard things, some triggering some memories or triggering some experiences that you've had and maybe you haven't found healing. Mia, what would be your encouragement when those triggers or those feelings come up, or all of a sudden you're like discombobulated and you're like, why am I feeling so impacted by this when when it's not my story? It's like someone else's story. I'm walking them through, but now I'm like kind of a mess from it. Why?
I think that is so normal. And I want to normalize that for people that if you are not triggered by the stories of what's happening and who you're involved with, I would venture to have a little concern there. Here's why. These are people's lives. And oftentimes you're seeing the hardest part of someone's chapter. You are doing your best to work in systems that sometimes feel like it's also creating more barriers than actually helping your client. And so it makes sense. I just so want to normalize. It makes sense if you are feeling an emotional reaction or you're impacted by it. Like that is actually a beautiful gift that God has given us to be able to feel and name emotions about what our experiences are. And so with that, what I would say, if it is getting to the place where it is impacting your ability to show up and to care for the people in front of you well, that's where I would have a conversation to say, hey, this is where you need to loop in your supervisor. This is where I would also encourage, do you need additional support like your own therapist or someone to walk through some of the things that you are triggered by? You may not understand why, but a professional, a therapist is the perfect opportunity for you to explore what's coming up for you and help to name and normalize that. It's a unique niche and a different perspective that is, I think, necessary for this work.
Yeah, that was a great question, Jame, of just like how many people that you work with do have lived experience, because we know when you're touched by this work or by this life, like it's hard to close your eyes to it. But the reality is that I think it's going to be triggering for everyone, whether you have lived experience or not. But part of the question I have for you is just with your specific lived experience, how has that played out for you at times? And what has it looked like for you to see yourself in some of the stories of the kids that you're serving?
That's a great question. So I've actually had to learn to balance that because I have a clinical background. And so I have a master's in clinical social work, which intentionally I work with mental health specifically. And one of the ways that you're trained in mental health is this idea that you don't share parts of your stories with clients. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't agree with that. As Hear me out. Our children need real life people who can truly share, no, I've been there.
And
And so I
empathize.
empathize to
Yeah.
understand. And so I've always been like, okay, Lord, you have me studying this, but like this is where I'm at. So I am always obviously within your ethics board. I'm not saying go against any of that at all. Like what I am saying is I made a promise to myself that if a client ever asked me, oh, why do you do what you do? Like, why are you here? That I was always going to answer honestly. And so I had the privilege of being a therapist in a group home setting for teenagers. And this came up. I had a group that I was leading for the girls, and one girl was like, Miss Mia. And I'm like, yes. Why are you doing this? Like, why does this even matter? She's like, we have therapists come in and out of this house all the time, but why does it matter that you're here? And I shared with them honestly. I was like, girls, I don't normally share this unless it's asked. But since you've opened up the door, I'm going to share a little bit about my story. And I always ask for permission because I want to make sure that the clients are okay with what's going to be shared. And I was in foster care. I actually lived in a group home setting as well before I was adopted. And you could see their eyes get really big, their eyes glass over. And they were like, wait, so you actually get what we're going through? You get to heal, you get to walk through, you get to choose and live and walk life in such a beautiful way. Is this chapter very hard? Yeah, it is. And we're going to normalize that. And we're here to help you walk alongside walk alongside you to navigate those hard parts of your story. And that for me was one of the most powerful moments as a therapist, that I sat there and said, this is why we do what we do. This is why you share and humanize yourself, right? To be able to say, I can meet you where you're at. Now, I'm very big on that doesn't mean I tell you this is how I felt about my story. It's more, I let the client, you have to process your thoughts, your feelings about your story and what's coming up for you. And so being able to offer that distinction, I think, is very important, because if you're going to disclose and it's an understood within ethics, it needs to be about benefiting the client and not about you.
Yeah, sure.
That's so good. Man, I was just having a conversation. I cannot place where it could have been. It could have been on the Forgotten podcast as well. But it was with someone who was talking about the different chapters in their story. And he was saying how he always remembers the story is a good story. There's a good ending because we have a good God, but this is a bad chapter. So good story, hard chapter. And I just think that was really, I don't know. I really like that. That's what reminded me of when you mentioned that, Mia.
It's so true too, and I'm glad whoever said that, I'm like, yes, kudos.
I know.
It's so
I'm
true.
like, my brain will not let me go there. I
No, that's
cannot
okay.
think.
And I'm like, we've never been promised that hardness, it wasn't going to come. And walking out of those chapters, I can look back and say, okay, God, your hand was still on me every step of the way. There were moments where I was literally hands held open and say, okay, you are still God, even though I don't understand why. I don't understand the why of what's happening here. I know that you still see and you're still working things out in your will, like with what's best.
So I feel like you've shared such great wisdom for how to sort of share with discernment in the work environment with the kids you're serving. What about for the worker who isn't just kind of, how do I share and serve the kids I'm working with, but I'm finding myself sort of having these really challenging things come up while I'm in this workspace? What thoughts do you have for the worker themselves?
I would say, my friend, you need a life outside of your working life. Hear me out. I think it's so important, the work that you're doing, and thank you for how you are showing up, right? You are making a difference.
Mm.
And I would say, can we take inventory? What do we need in this season, right?
That's good.
How are you taking care of yourself truly? I'm genuinely talking about sitting down and saying, are you getting your sleep? Are you drinking your water? Do you have life-giving relationships that are also pouring into you? Are you prioritizing your time with God? There's so much that we see that we are not in control of at all. And yet we are being asked to cast every care, every burden before Him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can say that, but it's a whole different process when you literally sit down. And I even say, like, write it out, put it to the side, like, get it
Yeah.
physically out, so that, okay, this reminds me, God, give me the wisdom for the areas that I can control and what's within
Mm-hmm.
my power. And I need to trust you, and I'm releasing to you these parts that are hard. And so within that, I would say that what is needed, that support to care for you, is so necessary in this work. You can't do it if you can't do it well if you're
Yeah.
not caring for yourself.
Have you had to step back and sort of readjust before?
Yes, one of the beautiful gifts that I have been introduced to is Sabbath. And I will say, my family and my daughter even knows now, Friday nights. She's like, I'm so excited. Friday's here, because she knows Saturday we disconnect. We're just like, this is our family time of rest. I'm not scheduling anything. I'm not putting anything. It is a time for, we play together as a family. We kind of just refuel and fill our cup. And it's a time that I'm like, it's a non-negotiable. I've been doing that for 15 years now. And
Wow.
that has been one of the biggest changes and gifts that I have seen, that our Creator loves us so much to say, hey, there's this little part here. I'm inviting you to rest. I'm inviting you to say, like, 6 days, yeah, work, get it done, but rest on this day. Be like refueled, replenished. And I will say 15 years ago, that was unheard of. Like, you wore your badge like an honor that you were a hard worker, running around doing everything. I grew up in ministry with my parents. And so we were in the children's ministry. We were at youth group. We were the family that, like, oh, this family needs something. We're running to this. We're going to make sure they have that. Right. Which I love. I'm grateful for that experience. And that's a sure way to also get burnt out if you are not prioritizing rest.
Absolutely. And how can you know, like, what are things you should be looking for? Because maybe you have lived in this place of just go, go, go for so long that you don't even know what like healthy is. Like, what would be some things to be like noticing?
Sure. I would venture to say if you are coming from a place where everything is cynical, right? Everything is becoming really jaded. I understand, because I'm like, you see some really hard things in this season, like in the work that you're doing. And if it is, that is a way that will impact how you then start working with clients, how you meet them where they're at. And so if that is your kind of way of interacting, or even snarkiness, and sometimes I even say like that sarcasm, right? Which first time it's like, that's my language. I'm from Jersey. So I feel like that's
Jersey girls, Mia.
I feel like
let's change our dialect a little bit. We can put on our Jersey sarcasm.
Yes, exactly.
No, your point, it's so good. That's such a good point.
I get it. I'm just like, it's hilarious for different things. And sometimes it's very much the cover up of, ooh, we are burnt out and tired here. And so just paying attention to those cues, and sometimes even hearing what are your loved ones saying to you, right? And that can be sometimes the hardest, is being honest and saying, ooh, I hurt my family member in this, or they're recognizing that I'm not caring for myself. And they love me enough to say, hey, I noticed this. What's going on? How can I support? Right. And leaning into that, because here's the thing, nobody's perfect. And so it's such a gift to get to repair and say, I messed that up, but it's fixable. We can work on this, right? I can rest. I can heal. So only you can like know yourself. And I will say, being willing to know yourself, because you can get so busy serving so much that you easily become the back burner, that you're missing out on those really important cues.
I think that is a lesson for all of us. You were just preaching to us as well.
That's right.
So with both sort of the trauma in the past and also just how this work is traumatic, the clinical background that you have and knowing the way that trauma impacts the brain and body and beliefs of those that it touches, like, what are some of the tools that you access for grounding yourself, for staying regulated? Like, give us sort of the tools, like, be the clinician for the person who's experiencing trauma on the job, especially with the lived experience as well.
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. I will say this has taken some time for me to get to this place. So I just want to encourage you to have grace for yourself.
That's really
for
helpful.
whoever's listening, right? This is not just this checklist. And we know with the brain that it takes time for habits to form and change. And this is where I geek out about neuroscience and neuroplasticity.
Go.
Like,
you have our permission.
I'm like, thank you. This is the hope, right?
Right.
We read this in Romans, right? About being transformed by the renewing of our mind, right? Neuroscience is like, hey, you know this part right here? If you repeat this enough, like, guess what's happening?
That's
transformation. So within that, I'm very big on, I fill my mind with things that are life-giving, right? My husband, for example, he loves like docuseries and things that are like really intense. And I'm like, I love you. Enjoy that. And I need a little bit of hope in some of my stories.
Your day job is the docuseries.
Right.
You don't need to come home to the docuseries.
We joke about it all the time, right? So when you are being triggered, right, and you have the lived experience as well, I would say some seasons may be harder than others where maybe you feel like you're being triggered more. often than other seasons, that's where I would say getting that additional support may be necessary, right? To revisit of having that other lens and view so you can lay those things down. The other thing with clinical work is for most of us who have a license, we're not allowed to talk or share about our experiences on the job because of HIPAA,
That's
right?
really tricky.
It's
Yeah.
Oh,
very
yeah.
tricky,
The
right?
idea of people in your life carrying things with you and
Yes.
like carrying each other's burdens and all of that. That's really tricky.
So what I have found, I am also part of a private practice. Networking is going to be so important. Finding your people, like finding the people who are safe, who understand that you can sit and you can talk and share what's coming up for you is vital. Now, don't break HIPAA, please. I am not saying be very, very cautious and careful about that. But with that, I'm like, I have a supervisor who happens to also be a really good friend. And I actually met her at that group home that I shared with you guys earlier in the podcast about. And she is such a safe space. I would say, too, especially with the lived experience, I have been able to meet some of the most amazing people because of like Phil, like what people I've connected with there, having people who understand and you can kind of look over and they just be like, yeah,
Mm.
is sometimes so powerful. And it gives you the hope to be like, okay, I'm not alone in what I'm feeling about this. And so
Yeah.
it's going to take trial and error because what may work for me, you might be like, that's good for you, Mia, but that does not work for me. So that
Yeah.
for me, though, what I say is don't give up, though, on
Mm.
ensuring that you have your toolkit. And I do this with clients. I say, okay, a lot of the work we're going to be doing, we're going to dig deep into the trauma and what's happening. We're also going to talk about your toolkit and we're going to talk about it while you're in a calm, safe space so that you can know what can I lean into. If something doesn't work, throw that out. Don't do it. Like, don't waste your time on trying to figure, like, let's go to the next one because eventually you will find the things that actually do work for you, that is healthy, that is life-giving, that is pouring back into your cup. So in this season, that looks like for me, give me a cozy blanket, a really good book. And that for me is helping me to, I can breathe. And I love stories that the character is working through something intense, but you see God's faithfulness and promise throughout it. And there's some beautiful truth that happens in fiction. And I'm like, this author, like, how did they know? Like, wait a second, right? And it becomes so healing. For me, I'm like, get into a book club with people that you enjoy with and be able
Mhm.
to kind of wrestle with some things out. Have fun is what I say. Get outside, right? Do
Mm.
things that honestly will help regulate your what are we talking about in a mental health world? Your nervous system, right?
Mhm.
Know your body, what you need. It's a balance of all things. Too much
Mhm.
of one thing is dangerous and can often get us in trouble.
Hmm. Wow. Well, I'm just having this a reminder of you've mentioned Filled a few times. And for those who don't know, this is an incredible retreat gathering that Jamie puts on with her team. But at Filled this last year, there was a moment when you said, if you are struggling, raise your hand. Would you be willing to raise your hand if you're struggling? Because there's a room full of women, 1,000, 2,000, how many women, Jamie?
1,200.
1,200 women who will come and pray for you. And I just remember that moment and watching people bravely raise their hands in that room and then to watch women who did not know them, some did,
Right,
some did
right.
not, just go to them and pray and hold them. And there was crying and it was beautiful. And that's what I want for our caseworkers. You
Mm.
guys be willing to raise your hand and say, I need help too. Because and praying that you will have those people who will come around you. And if it has to start with us on this podcast, we're here for you. And I just want, Mia, it's been such a great gift to have you on and to share. You have so much good perspective from various ways with your lived experience, with your clinical experience, all of these things. I just am going to ask you as we close out here, if you would, right now we have some caseworkers who are raising their hands and who are really struggling. Will you speak truth to them?
Thank you for accepting the call. Thank you for saying yes. The work that you do matters more than you can really see and know. And sometimes the seeds and the things that you are planting, you may not see the fruition of it, but you are impacting the lives of the people around you. It's okay that you're struggling. It's okay. This work is very hard, and you are worth being seen and being taken care of as well as you're caring for others. It's okay to also safely put up boundaries that are going to care for you, that's going to care for your own mental health, for your own well-being as you're doing your best to show up and serve others. And I always think of just how God will say, well done, good and faithful servant, right? The work that you are doing, choosing to say, okay, God, I've surrendered my life and I'm giving back and I'm pouring into you. He sees that, right? And he's also a God who sees the balance and desires for you to rest as well. So it's both. And as someone with the lived experience, having a caseworker who specifically told my parents, I'm not retiring until I find a home for Mia, right? And she stuck out through the end. I hold on to that. So your kiddos are holding on and they're seeing you, those parents, they're seeing you and the work that you're doing, and it's impacting them. And they're going to carry that with them for life, whether they can say that to you at this time or not, but you're doing good work.
Mia, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
Thank you, Mia. That was so good.
If this episode reminded you that you are not alone in this work, share it with another foster care caseworker who may need to hear it. And remember, your work matters, and so do you.
This podcast was edited and produced by Resonate Recordings.